Okay, so picture this. You wake up one morning, check your bank account, and you've got $200 billion sitting there. Congratulations, you're Elon Musk. Now here's the problem. The government wants 37% of it. That's $74 billion. Gone, just like that. So what do? Well, if you're one of the richest people on the planet, you don't just sit there and write a check. You've got a whole team of people, lawyers, accountants, financial architects, whose entire job is to make sure as little of that money as legally possible ends up with the tax man. And the way they do it, it's so complicated, so quietly brilliant, and honestly so wild that most people don't even know it exists. Today we're pulling back the curtain on exactly how the richest billionaires secretly move their money around the world. No fluff, no boring textbook stuff, just the real game explained like we're sitting across from each other. Let's start with the most famous trick in the book, the shell company. Now when most people hear shell company, they picture some Bond villain in a tuxedo on a yacht. And honestly, not far off. But here's the simple version. A shell company is a legal business that exists only on paper. No employees, no office, no product. Just a name, a registered address, and a bank account. The whole point is to hold money or assets on behalf of the actual owner, while keeping that owner's name completely out of the picture. Here's a fun fact that'll mess with your head. There is one office building in the Cayman Islands that is the registered address of over 19,000 companies. 19,000 companies in one building. That building is essentially the world's most expensive P.O. box, and it's where billions of dollars officially live on paper. So why the Cayman Islands? Because it has zero corporate tax, zero income tax, zero capital gains tax, nothing. You make $1 billion of profit through a Cayman Islands entity, and you owe their government exactly nothing. It's not illegal. It's not even frowned upon over there. It's literally the entire business model of the island, and it's not just random rich people doing this. Apple, Google, and hundreds of Fortune 500 companies all have Cayman Island structures. These aren't shady backroom operations. These are the biggest, most publicly traded companies in the world, all playing the exact same game. Now let's talk about how the money actually moves, because this is where it gets really interesting. Imagine you're Jeff Bezos. You've got Amazon, worth a couple of $1 trillion. Amazon makes money in the United States, where the corporate tax rate is 21%. So one of the things Amazon can do is something called transfer pricing. Here's how it works. Amazon creates a subsidiary in Ireland where corporate tax is much lower. The US parent company then pays the Irish subsidiary a licensing fee for the right to use Amazon's technology in certain markets. That fee shifts profit from the high-tax US operation into the low-tax Irish one. Legally, on paper, completely above board. The US government knows this happens and has been fighting it for decades. But the structures are so complex, built by the best tax lawyers money can buy, that by the time anyone figures out exactly what's going on, the money has already moved 3 more times. Google famously used a structure called the double Irish with a Dutch sandwich, which sounds like something off a weird cafe menu but is actually one of the most effective profit-shifting strategies ever invented. Profits routed from Ireland, through the Netherlands, back to another Irish entity, ending up in Bermuda. Tax rate on the way, almost nothing. But here's what really separates regular rich people from the ultra-wealthy. Regular rich people try to pay less tax. Ultra-wealthy people try to never trigger a tax event in the first place. This is how guys like Elon Musk and Warren Buffett end up paying a lower effective tax rate than their own secretaries. Buffett has said this himself. He famously admitted he paid a lower tax rate than his receptionist, and he wasn't lying. Here's the secret. In America, you only pay tax when you sell something. If your Tesla shares go from $1 billion to $100 billion in value, you don't owe a single cent in tax. Not until you sell. So what do billionaires do? They don't sell, they hold. Their wealth grows on paper, completely untaxed year after year. But they still need cash to live, right? Elon's got jets to fuel and rockets to build. So what do? They borrow against their assets. And borrowing is not a taxable event. You walk into a bank, put up $50 billion worth of Tesla stock as collateral, and walk out with a $10 billion loan at a low interest rate. You now have $10 billion in spending power. You paid zero tax on it, and the shares are still sitting there, still growing. This is called buy, borrow, die. You buy assets. You borrow against them to generate cash. And when you die, your heirs inherit at current market value, wiping out the capital gains that would have been owed if you'd ever sold. The whole game is to never trigger the tax event. Ever. Now let's talk about the leaks, because eventually this stuff started coming out. In 2016, a whistleblower inside a Panamanian law firm called Mossack Fonseca leaked 11.9 million documents to journalists. Those became the Panama Papers, exposing 214,000 shell companies set up for clients from over 200 countries. Politicians, celebrities, billionaires, world leaders, all of them with offshore companies holding assets they'd rather nobody know about. The Prime Minister of Iceland resigned within days because it turned out he had a secret offshore company that owned debt in Iceland's crashed banks, while he was publicly campaigning against those same creditors. The irony was so thick you could cut it. Shakira's name was in there. Cricket legend Sachin Tendulkar. Formula One champion Lewis Hamilton had an offshore structure that reportedly helped him avoid tax on a private jet. King Abdullah of Jordan showed up in the Pandora Papers, the sequel leak in 2021, with over 100 properties linked to offshore companies. The Pandora Papers alone exposed 29,000 offshore accounts connected to over 330 politicians across 91 countries. Now here's the twist nobody expected. When journalists went searching for Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Warren Buffett in those documents, they weren't there. Not in the Panama Papers, not in the Pandora Papers, not in the Paradise Papers. And that absence tells you more about how the game works than anything else in this video. The reason America's biggest billionaires don't appear in these leaks isn't because they're playing fair, it's because they don't need to go offshore. The US tax system already gives them enough tools at home. A 2021 ProPublica investigation found the 25 richest Americans paid a true tax rate of just 3.4% on over $400 billion in wealth growth between 2014 and 2018. Jeff Bezos paid 0.98%. Warren Buffett paid 0.10%. Elon Musk paid 3.27%. The median American household pays around 14%. The richest people in the country are paying a fraction of what regular working people pay. Not because they're doing anything illegal, but because the system was built to make it completely possible. So let's talk about the new playbook, because the game has evolved. After the leaks, governments cracked down. Switzerland started sharing banking information with foreign tax authorities. The Cayman Islands passed new transparency laws. The OECD pushed through a global minimum corporate tax of 15% that over 130 countries agreed to in principle. So what did the ultra-wealthy do? They adapted, because that's what they always do. Some started buying second passports. Programs in places like St. Kitts and Nevis, Malta, and Vanuatu let you literally purchase citizenship through an investment of a few $100,000 to a couple $1 million. With a second passport from a low-tax country, you can legally restructure where you pay tax. When you're worth $10 billion, spending $500,000 on a passport to cut your tax bill is the ROI of the century. Others moved into crypto. Decentralized finance platforms outside traditional banking have created new ways to hold, move, and grow wealth that are significantly harder for governments to track. Not illegal, just very difficult to see from the outside. And then there are family offices. A family office is a private investment firm that manages the wealth of one ultra-wealthy family. Not a bank, not a hedge fund. A completely private company with its own investment team, legal team, and tax strategy built around a single family. Over 10,000 of them now exist globally, managing an estimated $6 trillion in assets. They operate almost entirely outside public view, and most people have never even heard of them. The Walton family, the Kochs, the Pritzkers. These families don't have financial advisors. They have entire institutions, privately owned, working full-time to grow and protect generational wealth in ways that most of us will never see up close. So where does all of this leave the rest of us? And honestly, it's a fair question to sit with for a minute. Here's the honest truth. None of this is secret in the way you might think. The strategies exist. They're documented. They're legal. The information is out there. What makes it inaccessible isn't secrecy. It's complexity. It takes teams of the most expensive professionals on the planet to build and maintain these structures, which means only people who already have enormous wealth can afford to protect it this way. And that's the real game. Not just making money, building the infrastructure around it that keeps it growing, keeps it protected, and ensures as little as possible leaks out through taxes, lawsuits, or bad decisions. That is what separates a millionaire from a billionaire, not the number, the architecture. So the question was never, how do billionaires secretly move money around the world? The real question is, what are you building around what you have? This is the Wealth Stallion. We break down how money really works at the top, the moves most people never see, and the systems the ultra-wealthy use that almost nobody talks about. Subscribe right now if you're not already, and drop a comment below telling us which part of this blew your mind the most. Stay wealthy, stay curious. See you in the next one.